They add flavor you won't find anywhere else. Join Sports Skillets,
Jay, Jeff,
and Kelly every Sunday, 11 a.m. on 920 a.m. The Jersey. Local sports, national sports, with a flavor you'll love. Get ready to taste some Sports Skillet.
Hi, everyone. Spring is here. You can hear it. If you step outside right now, you can feel it. But how does the outside of that home of yours look? Is it time to restore and refresh those old pavers? What about that outdoor fireplace and new walkway you've wanted for years? Well, what are you waiting for? There's no excuse for not calling our friends at New Look Landscape Design. They're across the river in Pennsylvania. You can call them at 215-493-1705. Whether it's landscape, hardscape, or just maintenance, they will take care of you. If you're worried about quality service or products, maybe just dealing with someone unprofessional or dishonest. Not so. New Look Landscape Design. Write that down, save it to your smartphone, visit them on the web. They bring, their owner does, 15 years experience and a lifelong passion for creating a beautiful outdoor living space, a quality job on time and on budget. Most of all, he values his relationship with each client, working tirelessly with only one at a time until that dream of a beautiful outdoor living space is complete. NewLookLandscapeDesign.com. You can go on SportsSkilletRadio.com and see their ad. You watch my high school highlights. They're at the top of the last one. What are you waiting for? Flower beds, mulching, a new porch, even a koi pond. Koi bring good luck, so bring them to your home, courtesy of NewLookLandscapeDesign.com. Don't wait any longer on your dreams. They're waiting for you. New Look Landscape Design, 215-493-1705. Tell them Sports Skillet sent you. You'll get a 10% discount.
Switching our attention now to horse racing. We had a big race last weekend. We have a huge race coming up. We got the Preakness. And on the phone we have from TVG, Christina Blacker. You can also tweet her at Christina Blacker to find her on her social media account. Christina, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. We were just talking off the air, and you said that TVG has an awesome special that's going on?
We do. So we offered this to our customers for the Kentucky Derby and actually for most of the program on that day, not just the actual race, but also Kentucky Oaks Day, which was the day before. And we're going to be adding it to our Preakness lineup. It's called the Money Back Special. And so basically your first win wager that you play on TVG.com up to $10 is eligible for this promotion. And if your horse finishes second or third in the Preakness, we'll give you your money back. So it's a great offer because obviously if you win, you win. You're going to collect your winnings. And you don't have much risk if you pick a good horse that you really believe can hit the board. I like to play it with a bit of a long shot myself because if you're going to make a win bet on the favorite, it's the favorite. It's probably not going to be a whole lot of money back to you anyways. But if you have a long shot that you like and for some reason that horse does upset in the Preakness, then you get a lot of money back. And it's basically no risk otherwise for the second and third place finished positions because we'll just pay that right back into your TVG.com account.
Nice. Now, you also gave me some information about breaking news about a horse that pulled up this morning.
Yeah, we did. So there are several competitors that are targeting the Preakness next weekend that have their eye on the race. And one of those horses was a horse by the name of Royal Mo. Now, Royal Mo is trained by John Sheriff here in Southern California. And many sort of casual horse racing fans will know John Sheriff as the trainer of Pinata, the great mare that won 19 races a few years back. And Royal Mo was involved in his final pre-race workout this morning, and he pulled up out of that work, which is not what you ever want to see with a horse that's targeting a big race. Basically, at the quarter pole, as they were turning for home, his jockey just wasn't comfortable with the way he was moving. So they pulled him up. He is being evaluated at a local equine medical facility right now as we speak, but he definitely will not compete in the race on Saturday. They'll make future plans with regard to whether he comes back to the races. They've kind of speculated that he may be retired and go off to stud duty because he has very regal bloodlines and they want to carry those bloodlines on to the breed, but he will not compete, unfortunately, in the Preakness next weekend.
Is always dreaming a Triple Crown horse. Let's get right to it.
I think so. It's pretty incredible the way that he has developed in such a short period of time. His final race prior to the Kentucky Derby was the Florida Derby, and he ran one of the fastest Florida Derbies in history. That's one of the qualifiers for Kentucky that year in, year out is very strong. You always get a very deep and talented crop of 3-year-olds coming out of Florida. And not only did he beat those horses, but he beat them as if they were standing still. And he came back in Kentucky, and he was the post-time favorite for the Derby this year, and he had a perfect trip, but he's just a brilliant horse. I don't think anybody expected any of the runners in the field this year to be that dominant and to win under such cruise control. I mean, I watched him on the gallop out, and when he pulled up, he was barely warm on his neck. He looked like he could have gone around again, and it wouldn't have bothered him. I think his only danger in the Preakness this weekend is a horse by the name of Classic Empire. Classic Empire is trained by Mark Cassey, one of the best trainers in thoroughbred racing, and Classic Empire had kind of a bumpy road getting to the Derby this year. He had some stops and starts in his training. He was very colty, as we like to say. There were a few times when he just went out there and didn't want to train. He gave his jockey a real hard time. He gave his handlers a real hard time, and he was just mentally not really focused, kind of didn't have his eye on the prize, but he was sort of like one of those young, really physically developed kids, like an adolescent that didn't want to hone his craft. He ran a good race in the Derby, but he had a ton of trouble. He ended up fourth, but if you watch him, he got wiped out coming out of the starting gate by another horse. He had kind of some traffic trouble into the first turn. He didn't get a real chance to run until late in the stretch. He sort of had his momentum stopped a few times, and he still ended up fourth behind Always Dreaming. So I think with Classic Empire, he's starting to really get it and really pay attention and focus. And with a clear trip, he could be much closer to Always Dreaming, if not upset him this weekend.
Wow, Christina, this is great information. I want to go back to something you said about qualifying for the Kentucky Derby. Now, enlighten us, how do you qualify to run, or how does a horse qualify to run in the Kentucky Derby?
Yes, it's pretty remarkable. There are about 30,000 foals born every year, and only 20 make it to the Kentucky Derby in their 3-year-old season. So when you think about the odds that are stacked against these horses, just to get in, these are the best 23-year-olds in all of America. And actually, there's a spot available for a few international horses as well. There's a spot for a Japanese runner based on some qualifying races that they run over there. And then there's a spot for a horse from Dubai if they choose to take it as well. So it's actually whittled down to even 18 for the American horses in some years. What we have is a point system, and there are races along the 2-year-old campaign and then races throughout the 3-year-old campaign where points are offered to first, second, and third, and fourth. And so you basically have to run well in those qualifiers throughout your 2-year-old season and your 3-year-old season to earn enough points to get into the Derby. More weight is given to the final preps, like the Florida Derby, which I mentioned, the Santa Anita Derby, the Wood Memorial, which is run in New York, and the Arkansas Derby. Those races come about 4 to 5 weeks prior to the Kentucky Derby, and because you're kind of getting closer and closer to the race and the horses are physically really coming into themselves at that point, if you win one of those races, you're basically guaranteed a spot in the gate. But you can also kind of chip away to your 2-year-old year and your 3-year-old year, maybe hit the board a few times and still qualify yourself that way.
If you're looking for a dark horse, pardon the pun, for for the Preakness, there are several that are kind of bunched up in there. You got Hens, you got Conquest, Mo Money, you got Cloud Computing, Multiplier. Who would you like in that group?
I think in terms of the Preakness this year, it's Always Dreaming, then Classic Empire, and then sort of the rest. I mean, everybody else looks very evenly matched beyond that. I suppose you could say Gunnevera is a little bit more accomplished than some of the others as well, but I think he's had a real demanding campaign, and I'm not sure that he is as fresh as some of the other horses. One of the new shooters that I'm really intrigued by is a horse by the name of Cloud Computing. He comes out of Wood Memorial, which was a race in New York, and he actually had enough points to run in the Kentucky Derby if he chose to do so. But his trainer, Chad Brown, I thought made a very prudent and very difficult decision. He decided to not run in Kentucky because this horse kind of began his career a little later. He didn't make it to the races as soon as some of the others did. So he basically was on an accelerated path. He began in a 6-furlong sprint, which he won very impressively, and then they went immediately to stakes competition, to the highest level of competition off just one win. And he hit the board in that stakes race, which is called the Gotham. He then hit the board again in the Wood Memorial. And I just think he's a horse that has so much raw ability. He's just a bit of a late bloomer. But I love that as difficult as it was, they skipped the Derby and they gave him a little more time. And I think he's coming into the Preakness very fresh. He's trained by Chad Brown, who was our Eclipse Award-winning trainer for 2016, which means he was basically voted on by sports media members as the best trainer in America. And I think he's kind of sitting on his first classic win at some point in the very near future. And this horse has all the tools to do it. It's just a matter of whether or not he's really put it together to defeat a horse like Always Dreaming, who basically had a head start on him in his career.
And who is your pick right now to win the Preakness as we sit here on Sunday?
It's Always Dreaming. I mean, I got to go with him. I'll tell you, he was just so impressive in Kentucky. Obviously, I want to see the chance for a Triple Crown again. I mean, it was just so incredible with American Pharoah a couple years ago. And like I said, I think his only real, legitimate danger is Classic Empire. I think Classic Empire is as good as he is. But for me, I'm going to go with Always Dreaming. My dad was actually a jockey for 25 years. He called me the morning of the Kentucky Derby just to kind of talk about the race a little bit. And he said, I'll tell you, Always Dreaming can't lose. And he had watched all the replays. And just as a jockey and with his experience and with his eye for a horse, he saw just the total package in Always Dreaming. And he was right. I mean, he proved it out there on the racetrack. So I think he's in a very good position to come back and beat these horses again, especially if he's able to get a clear trip.
And Christina, can you give our audience a little idea about what the horses and the trainers do in between these three races that they have going on?
Yeah, so basically by the time you get to the Kentucky Derby, you're fit as far as your, stamina goes, because those prep races and the training up to it is very grueling. So these horses are lean, mean machines out there. Between the Derby and the Preakness, it's a very delicate time because it's only 2 weeks between races. Most of the time, horses don't run for 4 weeks between races, maybe 5 weeks between races. So that's when you think about the Triple Crown being so grueling. You run in Kentucky, 2 weeks later you run in the Preakness, 3 weeks later you run in the Belmont. That's what makes it so hard. You might normally only have 1 or 2 races in that 5-week time span. So between the Derby and the Preakness, you kind of want to take it easy. You want to give your horse that first week to regroup. They've just run the hardest race of their life. You want to let them walk a few days, jog a few days, just make sure they don't have any kind of lingering, maybe pulled muscles, soreness, anything like that. And then the second week, you want to mentally get them focused to prepare for a race again. You want to turn the screws a little bit and let them know, all right, we're getting right back into the action here. So you want to gallop them a little bit. Some trainers will elect to breeze a horse, which is basically a timed workout against the clock to kind of, it would almost be like if you were doing interval training and you wanted to sprint a few times to just build your stamina back up. Some trainers will do that in between the race. Some will not. It's a very individual decision, and it's also an individual decision based on the particular horse. Then in the final few days, you want to school them a little bit, take them over to the races in the afternoon, let them look around. Remember, these are new circumstances, new racetracks, new paddocks, new fans, new environments with the concerts and all the sort of festivities that go on at the Triple Crown races. So you want to make sure that physically they're not too knocked out from the Derby, but mentally they can handle the chaos again of the Preakness.
Now, before we let you go, what do you have anything to say about the mud, the conditions during the Derby? According to you and what I'm hearing, I mean, the best horse won. But
I think so, yeah. You're right. The best horse did win. But the conditions are something that you do have to take into account. I mean, unfortunately, it had quite a bit of rain the day before and the morning of the Kentucky Derby, so there was still a lot of moisture in that track. It was a track that was drying out. It wasn't truly, completely sloppy with mud sort of flying everywhere, but it was a track with some moisture in it. And some horses love that, and some will move up, and some don't care for it and will kind of regress a little bit on a track like that. It's all part of what it takes to be a champion. To win the Kentucky Derby, you have to be willing to compete when the conditions aren't perfect. You have to go out there and play your game, whether it's a fast track, a sloppy track, raining, freezing, 95 degrees and hot, which it can be in Kentucky that time of year. So you really have to have a resilient athlete. And that's what we saw from many of these horses. But I still, as you say, think that the best horse, on paper at least, like looking at what they had done in their qualifiers, the best horse did win.
Wow. You've definitely convinced us that the animals are true athletes. But you mentioned real quick, I know you got it going, your father was a jockey?
Yes.
That is amazing. So what, like real quickly, how does he prepare? What is his lifestyle like being a jockey? I imagine he doesn't weigh that much.
Yeah, well, he's retired now. He rode for about 30 years. But my dad was very fortunate in that his weight was never really an issue for him. He was just naturally a lighter individual. He's about 5'4", he just was an athlete from the beginning, a wrestler when he was younger, and then got into the horses when he was about 15 or 16. But, it's a very difficult lifestyle because being a jockey is a year-round sport. There's no season. They ride all year. So not only do you never really get a break, but you have to be physically fit, be mentally tough, and watch your weight for many of them. Many of them do struggle with their weight for the entire, 365 days of the year. And jockeys are not under any kind of contract. So if they don't win, they don't make money. There's a certain mount fee that you might get for riding a horse, $80, $100 for going out there and trying. But if you don't actually win the race, you don't have the money to support your family. So you can never take a vacation. You can never, if you get injured, which happens, you lose all your business and you start from scratch when you come back from that injury. It's something that, these guys really are, pound for pound, some of the strongest athletes out there physically. They're controlling these 1,200-pound animals, balancing on their toes. But it's also mentally, I think, a very difficult thing to be able to come back every single day and never get a break. Even though you love it, it's taxing. And my dad really enjoyed it. He had a great career. He still loves the sport. He still follows along, obviously. It's great for me as a handicapper on TVG. I can always call him if I have questions. I think that I'm able to watch a race from a jockey's perspective, having learned from my dad. And my husband's actually a horse trainer, so I get that side of it too. So I have been able to pull from their experience to try and help our viewers understand what it takes to prepare a horse for a race and also what it takes to actually be a jockey and be out there competing every day.
And Christina, as we wrap up with you, I got to ask you one question about the horse that is an internet sensation, Patches. What have you heard about him after the Derby? How's he doing? Can you give us an update on Patches?
Yeah, he's pretty incredible, isn't he? So he's a horse that has such one eye. He actually, his left eye was removed after an injury. But there are horses in his same circumstance that compete each and every day. You just might not know it. And it just goes to show you how kind of resilient and how tough these horses can be. Unfortunately, the Derby wasn't really his day. Obviously, he was a fan favorite. He is not targeting the Preakness right now, but I think they're going to maybe regroup and look at some other races throughout the campaign. There's kind of a second tier of races for 3-year-olds that are not the Triple Crown, but there's races like the Ohio Derby, the Iowa Derby, there's definitely the Texas Derby. There's races that he can compete in and still make quite a lot of money for his owners, and obviously he has a big following. But I think the sentimental story was what got so many people in his corner, and understandably so. But if you looked at his price at setting time for the Kentucky Derby, it wasn't really reflective of his chances. He was kind of an underdog, but take nothing away from the fact that he really had overcome a lot and was a horse that you couldn't kind of help but root for him out there.
And we got your pick for number 1. Can we get 2 quick picks for 2 and 3?
Yeah, definitely. So Always Dreaming number 1. But then, as I said, we have that money back special. So I'm going to actually make your first bet on Classic Empire because I think he's the only one with a real solid chance of upsetting. So if he wins, you make money. If he runs second to Always Dreaming, you get that money back special. I would also bet Cloud Computing. He was the horse for Chad Brown that I mentioned. He's kind of a late bloomer, but I think talent-wise, he has all the ability to kind of run with the big dogs. We'll just see if he's ready for it now or if he needs a little bit more time, and maybe by the end of the year, he'll be on his true A game.
Cool. Sounds good, Christina. Can you let everybody know what you got coming up, this week and the next couple of weeks?
We do, yes. So today we're racing at Santa Anita. I will be there with our crew live on site in Arcadia, California. There is racing from New York and from New Jersey today as well. So that's actually already up and running on TVG. We stream live on our website if you don't have the actual channel on your cable provider at home. We're also, you can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook Live channel there. And then come next week, we're going to send about half of our crew to Pimlico to be there live on site for the Preakness. So we will not only have coverage that whole day of racing leading up to the big one, but in the days prior, in the mornings prior, we'll have exclusive video of these horses in the morning, interviews with the connections. So pretty much everything that you need to know about the horses running at the Preakness will be available on TVG. And a lot of it is on our Twitter page as well. If you're kind of new to horse racing and just want to see a few hits and see if you're interested, you can always go to @TVG on Twitter and take a look at some of those interviews, take a look at some of the athletes. And I promise you can't help but fall in love with the horses. I mean, they're beautiful to watch, and they are so pure. They're so athletic. I love this sport. I live it and breathe it every day. But I tell you, if you just give it a chance, everybody out there will enjoy it just as much.
Absolutely. I think they will as well. Christina, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Hopefully we can have you on within the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, let's call back for the Belmont. I'll talk to you in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely. Sounds terrific. Thanks, Christina.
All right. Thank you.
And that was Christina Blacker. You can find her on Twitter at Christina Blacker. Just take out the E. So it's Blackr. Christina Blackr on Twitter. You can give her a follow. Please do that.
You're listening to the Sports Skillet Radio Show. Get in on the conversation. Give the boys a call at 609-919-9200. Hit us up on the web at sportsskilletradio.com. Like us on Facebook to keep up with the latest sports news and show updates.